So I want to do something a little bit different in this video and do some tips to go from the newbie gains phase to real gains that last year after year after year after year, because I see a lot of people start their fitness journey, they're lifting for maybe 2-3 years and they hit this plateau where they're just going in the gym, they're kind of going through the motions and it's not really fun anymore because they're not really making progress. And I got stuck there for a couple years, and honestly that's kind of what made me become a coach, because I got so frustrated with not seeing the progress and just not understanding how to get to that next level and like put all of the information together in a system that would allow me to do this for the rest of my life. So I did that myself, and in doing so I became a coach, put all those systems together, and that's what I give my clients. So I just wanted to do this for you guys because honestly this is something I wish I had at this stage. After you leave that newbie gains phase, like what's next, what should you be focusing on? So there's about 6 or 7 things that I want to go through, and the first one is refining and standardizing your technique. Okay, now this goes over a lot of people's head because they think of technique as like, oh, okay, I do bicep curls the same way everyone else does on social media, like it looks okay, I can't be doing anything terribly wrong, like I have decent form. These are the famous last words of everyone I speak to when their ego is still in the way and they haven't actually seen that there's still room for improvement. I have coached coaches before, I have seen coaches who still have shit form, and that's no knock on them, but they just haven't put in that time to really understand that there's more room for growth there. So with that said, when you're looking to really dial in your technique and refine and standardize it, there's a reason that I specifically use the word standardize, because your goal is to take your form, so your body positioning in each movement, your grip widths, your tempo that you use, so the speed of the eccentric, how long you're pausing in the isometric, and the concentric. Your range of motion, so how deep are you going into the bench? How deep are you going into a squat? Ideally, you're getting the full range of motion that you can. But what you want to do is standardize every little piece of your training, because if you are doing every set slightly different, if you're doing every rep slightly different because the set gets harder as you do more reps, and then you're tempted to limit your range of motion, you have not yet standardized your technique and your training quality, which means that going into progressive overload, which is something that we're going to talk about next, really becomes impossible, because you can't actually track your progressive overload by how many more reps or how much more weight you're doing each week or every other week when the training itself is not yet standardized. Because progressive overload, which we're going to get into in a second, is defined by doing more reps or weight under the same conditions as the previous session. So if your conditions are always changing, which is like the tempo, the range of motion, how you actually execute the movement itself, you aren't truly going to be able to progressively overload effectively, or at least track it, which is something that's really important when you get past the newbie gains phase. So when you're looking to standardize your technique, I think it's really important to learn from someone who knows their shit. I have a ton of form videos on my TikTok, my Instagram, things like that. You can watch how I train, what I do, and I teach that stuff. But if you want more advice, just send me a message and I'll make a different form video and post up on social media for you. I have no problem doing that. So that's what you want to do. You want to get kind of inspiration from others that at least know their shit, because there's a lot of people who claim to know their stuff, but their form and their technique and their tempo is horrendous, for lack of a better word. So that's the goal. And then if you can film your stuff, if you can film a set of each exercise every session, you can look back on it and reflect and be like, oh, I wasn't going as low in that squat as I thought, I can go lower. Or if you have issues getting lower in your squat, okay, well, what's the next step? Hip mobility. Can you find an effective hip mobility routine? Which I also have that, by the way. If you want that, let me know and I can share it. But it's little things like that. It's being able to really audit your training every week, look back and say, here's what I want to change. Even during the session, like you don't have to look back after your training session and like rewatch everything. You can literally do it as you're resting in between sets and be like, oh, I'm going to change this for my next set. So like this is the level that you want to get to, because once you do that, then step number 2 is prioritizing progressive overload. So as a newbie, you can pretty much get away with building muscle super easily by doing anything. You pick up some weights, you move some shit around, you're going to build muscle. And you'll notice that because you can do 4 sets of 12 on everything and just build muscle. You can pick whatever exercises that you want. You can really not worry much about tracking your numbers and you build muscle. But past that point, you have to get more detailed. You have to have more strategy. So with that said, prioritizing progressive overload starts with step 1, which is standardize your training so that you can then only add a rep or weight each week to your training. So progressive overload is not doing more sets every week. It's not adding in exercises. It's not, making it harder by resting less between sets. All of those things are not necessary. The main thing that you're going to want to work on is just standardizing the way that you execute your movements. And then from there, now you can just focus on adding a rep or weight each week to that already really good quality form. Now, with that said, you're also going to want to start looking at things like your reps in reserve, right? How hard are you actually training? Because to grow muscle effectively, as you get more experience, you're going to have to be in that 0 to 4 reps in reserve range. And if you're training too hard all the time and you're training to failure all the time, that's going to be a problem for your recovery. And if you're not recovering well, you're not going to grow as much muscle. But if you're training too far away from failure, which is honestly most people, you're not going to build as much muscle as you can. So learning to train hard is actually a skill. Training hard does not mean that you're going to mental failure, psychological failure. You're going to the point where the concentric speed of the rep actually starts to slow down. That's right around 3 to 4 reps in reserve, and it's not by choice. It's by your actual muscle is slowing down. The contraction part is slowing down, fighting back against you. It's not that you feel like it's difficult and then you just drop the weight. That is not failure. Failure is also not doing extra reps past the point of good quality. So if you can do 10 reps with really great quality, and by rep number 7, it's getting really, really difficult to where you're like, I don't think I can do more reps with the same quality form, that is getting to failure. Good quality technical failure means that you cannot do another rep with the same form that you started the set with. So again, that's where the importance of standardizing your training comes in, because you know what that template is to get from rep 1 all the way to whatever the ending rep that you're trying to get to is. So there's lots of little details in here that I think a lot of people overlook, and I honestly could go so much more in depth into a bunch of these, and there's a lot of things that I'm missing here that I'm already thinking of, but I don't want to put all that information and kind of overload it. So 1, refine and standardize your technique. 2, prioritize progressive overload. And then the third thing is using a program with periodization. So the mistake a lot of people make is like they'll just pick a bunch of exercises and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to do these for 4 to 6 weeks. And then they'll do like, I'm going to do 4 sets of 12 on everything. And they just do that the whole time. There's no progressive overload there. There's also no deeper understanding of the strategy behind what are you doing in week 1 to progress all the way to week 5 or 6 in this training phase. So your training should be phased out in weeks and months, and there should be variables that stay the same and variables that change throughout that training phase so that it's more challenging over time and you're actually pushing for growth. So it kind of takes care of the progressive overload thing already when your training is periodized. So in week 1, you might be aiming for 3 to 4 reps in reserve or 2 to 3 reps in reserve. And by week number 5 or 6, you're aiming for 0 to 1 so that you can experience what failure feels like on those exercises and how close to failure you've been training that whole time. So there's lots of little details like this, choosing what rep range you're going to work through, or choosing a rep target and then, increasing the weight with it. It's not just like throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. Actually predetermined strategy, predetermined numbers, predetermined structure within your training plan. And then getting into the nutrition side of things, number 4 is you absolutely want to build skill at maintenance calories. So a lot of people are under eating and they aren't yet hitting what their maintenance calories should be. So if you do your calculations or you use an online calculator and it says that your maintenance calories should be 1800, you're eating like 1300, you probably need to spend some time slowly working up to that. Now, it requires you actually tracking your food, right? If you want to get past the point of newbie gains, like you got to track your shit. It's not like I can track 2-3 days out of the week and then you get to the weekend and you're just off track. Like, there is a level of consistency that has to be there, and tracking your food doesn't need to be super difficult. And the key to that is actually learning how to do it and building up the skill for an extended period of time. Most people will quit before they gain the skill because you're like, oh, this is so annoying, it takes so long, it takes up so much of my time. But the reason that is because you haven't yet done it for long enough through the sucky part of it to then build the skill to where it's just second nature to you and it's not frustrating, it's not, too much, it doesn't take too much time. So spend some time getting to your maintenance calories. If you're already there, do a maintenance phase for at least 4 to 6 weeks before you do anything else. Because I can promise you, I can guarantee that and challenge me on this if this is wrong, but I think that everyone who is watching this has not yet successfully completed a maintenance phase where you hit your maintenance calories day in, day out for at least 4 to 6 weeks and you're not compromising. So a lot of people will say, oh yeah, like I track my food and I roughly eat 1,600 calories. But if you're using words like I try or I roughly or things like that, I already know that you haven't been as dialed in as you could be. And it's not time to go in a bulk. It's not time to go in a cut. You just need to simply track your food and learn how to be really consistent with it. So do a maintenance phase. That's going to help you do a little bit of a body recomp if you haven't ever really consistently eaten the same amount of food before. That will help you body recomp, especially if you're hitting your protein targets. Then from there, your body will actually be ready to go into a build, into a bulk. And, again, if you're looking to get past that newbie gains phase, this is the level of strategy that has to come in. If you want to keep making progress, then you have to dial in your nutrition for muscle growth specifically. So number 4 is build skill at maintenance calories. Find your maintenance calories, stay there for a long period of time. And then number 5 is to dial in your nutrition for muscle growth specifically. We all know that we need to eat more protein. We all know that we need to eat healthier. That is not a good enough strategy or a detailed enough strategy to actually hold you accountable and to take you through to those next levels. That's beginner shit. So we need to be looking at an actual game plan. So build out a 9 to 12 month game plan, and that's going to be step number 6 is to build out a 9 to 12 month game plan nutritionally. So what we do with our clients is we sit down right around the 6-week mark after they come into the program. We sit down and we build out a game plan for when are we going to be maintaining, cutting, bulking, and these are the phases that are necessary to keep progress going long term. If you are someone who's just been kind of like main gaining or basically maintaining the same physique while working out and while like eating healthier and eating more protein, you're not achieving that change because you're not going in one direction or the other. So phasing out how long you need to build bulk for, how long you need to maintain for, how long you need to cut for, what the benefits of all of those are and what they're going to do, what expectations should you have, how do you change your actual protocol, like your calories, your macros, and all that during that time. All of those details should be actually worked out beforehand so that you have something to stick to and something to work towards. Not just going in the gym every day, throwing shit at the wall, hoping it sticks and being like, I'm just going to keep staying comfortable and maintaining where I'm at, because that's essentially what it is if you don't have a longer term plan. So I'd build the game plan out for the next 9 to 12 months so you have something to stick to, you have something to aim for. Lastly, number 7 is track progress closely. This is the step that a lot of people skip out on because they don't think it's important. This is easily one of the most important things that my clients do to communicate where their progress is or isn't happening so that we can make adjustments to their protocol. So if you're getting deeper into this, you're going to have to understand how your body's responding to the things that you're doing. So the amount of calories that you're consuming, the consistencies or inconsistencies, the training, so that you know when to make adjustments. So for me, if a client is weighing in 4 times per week, I can very quickly see the trends on the scale of what's going on. And I don't make emotional decisions based off of one single weigh-in because I know that, it could be they're on their period. It could be that they eat something different the night before and, they're having water retention. It could be that they're stressed. But when we have many weigh-ins, we can look at the data objectively and say, okay, this clearly is not working. We now need to adjust calories down for the calorie deficit that we're already in because, they've plateaued, or vice versa for the surplus. So it gives us a lot of context in how we make changes and how we progress through these different phases that we built out in step number 6. And then of course you also want to be taking progress photos weekly. This is a big piece too because you actually hold yourself accountable to how you look and how you feel. A lot of people avoid taking progress photos because they're in denial about where they're at. I think progress photos allow you to accept where you are. And when you go from denial to acceptance, you go from blame to opportunity. When you're in denial mode, you tend to blame external circumstances as to why you aren't where you want to be, even if it's, oh, I'm stressed or work is busy or, my relationship just isn't supportive or whatever all those external things are. We're finding those because we're in denial about where we are. If we can accept where we are and say, okay, I want to move forward and I actually want to find opportunities and find solutions, like that's growth. And the only way to do that is be in acceptance of where you currently are. And I think taking progress photos is a big piece to that. And of course, on the physical side, progress photos kind of show you where really am I right now? And am I making progress? You're not going to see progress week to week, but you're going to see slow progress, every month. And doing those comparisons is really, really valuable. So if you can do it, in the same lighting each time, wearing roughly the same thing, that way it's all accurate, it looks the same each time, then you're going to be able to see progress so much easier. And then make sure that you're doing your weigh-ins early in the morning after you've gone to the bathroom, before you've eaten, so that they're the most accurate that they can be. And again, that's not the only way to track progress too. Like, yes, those are the physical pieces to it, but you got to look at your biofeedback, things like your energy levels, your appetite, your mood, your stress levels, your sleep quality and quantity, like your digestion, your gut health. Like, all of these pieces play into the puzzle, and when they are responding a certain way, so your biofeedback is telling you something, you have to know what to do with that information. So if your digestion is off and you're in a bulk, okay, what are you going to do with that? If you're experiencing really high appetite, but you're at maintenance calories, like, what does that mean? What should you do next then? Again, if you're in a deficit and you're not experiencing a high appetite, does your metabolism have an issue? Like, there's so many pieces to this, but when you can start auditing those things and looking at them, and you have this biofeedback, you are able to manage and maneuver through your own journey. And if you don't have that skill yet, it's going to take a long time to get there. And of course, a way to fast track that is getting a coach. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you have to have a coach, because you don't. But if you want that extra level of support, and you want to have a person to look at your stuff from a bird's eye view and be like, yeah, here's what this means. You take the knowledge that they've basically accumulated over the last 5-10 years and fast track your own progress. Like, you get to download that information into your own fitness journey for way less time than what it took for them to get it. So that is also an option for you if you don't want to kind of learn all of this on your own. And if that is something that you're interested in, like, go and look at my social media. I'm Brittany_Stafford on Instagram, Built Better Athletics on TikTok, and then I'll leave my application in the bio as well. So to wrap this up, understand that there's many pieces to the puzzle outside of this. We didn't even touch on recovery. There's a lot of stuff within training that I haven't really touched on either, but I hope this gives you kind of a good overview of what you need to be doing to get to the next level of progress, outside of just keep going to the gym, keep tracking my food, but having like no real aim. Because I think the craziest thing to do is expect to get to a destination when you don't even have a map in front of you. If you don't have the directions and you're trying to get somewhere, how are you ever supposed to get there, right? It's mindless. It's like just kind of going through the motions. So if this helped you, let me know. If you would want more videos like this, if it was insightful, let me know. I have a ton of knowledge in this brain, and a lot of it doesn't get filtered out onto social media. So this is kind of a nice outlet to be able to just kind of ramble on these topics. So if it was helpful, let me know. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment below. Subscribe if you thought it was valuable, and we'll see you in the next one.